Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our next conversation: how Asian women can boss up in life and business. Sheena Yap Chan is a keynote speaker, coach, podcaster, consultant, and author on building self-confidence. She currently inspires women through her award-winning podcast called The Tao of Self-Confidence, where she interviews Asian women about their inner journey to self-confidence. Her mission is to help Asian women boost their confidence to live their authentic selves, help Asian women create a voice in the world, and create a stronger representation for Asian women. Sheena has been featured on Mind Valley, Slice.ca, Marketing in Asia, Manila Times, and more. She's also the top 100 Filipinos to follow on LinkedIn for inspiration and learning. And she is also the co-author of the international best-selling book, Asian Women Who Boss Up. Now, it is my pleasure to moderate this conversation. So I'm going to hang out with you for 30 minutes, Sheena. Thank you for being here today. And before we roll into our questions, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience about your personal or professional journey to help set the stage?
Hi, everyone. First off, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today. As you know, my name is Sheena Yap Chan. I'm just really excited to be here. My journey hasn't always been easy, first of all. I think I just want to share that because sometimes we see on social media and we're like, oh my God, everything's perfect. My life is far from perfect. And I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that's part of the journey. I've had my fair share of ups and downs, especially from the pandemic, made a lot of mistakes along the way to be here. So if I can do it, whoever's watching it, you can do it too.
I love that. Well, thank you for starting off with the transparency there. I'm sure that we'll learn more about your story as we roll into these questions. And I just want to say for our live callers, be sure to drop any questions in the chat so that I can raise them here before we've got about 28 minutes. And I know that we're talking about being our authentic selves and we've got time going with us. So feel free to dive in as deep as you want, Sheena, on these questions. So to start off, can you tell us why Asian women may have a hard time feeling confident in their careers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for centuries, Asian women has been seen as quiet, submissive, and obedient. And because of that, we tend to resist to go out there and make the first move, ask for that promotion. Also, our cultural upbringing really stops us from making moves, right? We're just told, especially Asian women, to live one way of life, go to school, get a job, get married, never rock the boat. Sometimes even leave your job to run the household, have kids. And so it's really challenging for us to go out there and forge our own path. I've seen it plenty of times. And then as well, when you're in the workplace and people, who are senior than you don't see you as that leadership role, they're not going to ask you for that that position you want to be in and things like that. So that's another thing. And so because we've been programmed to do all these things, sometimes we feel like we're not worthy enough to go out there and make the first move. Also, we sometimes feel like we're not worthy enough to go out there, right? We always feel like we have to ask for permission when we don't have to, right? We just have to go out there and do it, make things happen. And that's why it takes a lot of confidence to go out there and do it.
Now, I just want to tie in what you previously said to set the stage for us. You were demystifying what social media might show. Is there anything you want to just, something that's been, near and dear to your heart, specifically as it regards to how media, either reveals or conceals these, let's say visual cues or even written cues that can either support the evolution of self-awareness or, not support it? Is there anything you want to, demystify there with social media in particular? I know it's a big question, but I know since it's at our fingertips all the time and, you have your podcast and you work specifically in this industry, would just love to know what's been on your mind these days.
Oh my God. Okay. So one thing that really just kind of grinds my gears is, how COVID depicts us, right? Every time there's a COVID prediction or projection about how many more cases is coming out, there's always an Asian person on the front page of the article. And for me, that really hurts us, right? Because there's already been a rise of Asian hate crimes, more so Asian women, because of our negative stereotypes, right? Asian women are targeted 2.5 times more than men. And so when you see, an Asian woman in the middle of an article with their mask on, I mean, what are they going to see? They're going to see that we were the cause of this whole pandemic, right? And it's not even on small media publications, right? It's on the Washington Post that really just came out last weekend. And so seeing those things really hurts us because it's like now the trauma is happening all over again, right? All these crimes are happening. Nobody talks about, the trauma we go through when, someone near and dear to us gets attacked. I mean, especially our elderly, right? They've been in this country for so long. They've already gone through the traumas, migrating to the US and Canada, and then they're reliving their trauma all over again. Especially when I see, the predator is always being humanized, right? They're seen as, oh, they have a mental health issue or mental awareness issue, but like, what about the mental health issues that victims go through, right? Nobody talks about that, and that for me is so important, right? These are women who have businesses, who have kids, who have a life, who've worked their way to get to where they are today, and yet nobody talks about them. And it really just, hurts me to see that, right? Of course, not everything is all bad. We have, made some moves, right? Little by little. One of the greatest things I really am proud of today is the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie has been such a blessing because this is the first time that an immigrant Asian woman has been seen as the heroine and the lead of the movie, right? There's not that Asian stereotype. It's just, a typical Asian woman who probably goes to the market that you've never even paid attention to. And now she's the heroine, she's the lead role. And it just shows what's possible. And this is why representation is so important. It really, really shows us what's possible for us. We don't have to be, what our parents tell us or what our society tells us. We can be more, we can do more. We can really go out there and do anything we really put our mind to, right? It really starts with that belief in ourselves, because without it, we're not going to go out there and make moves, make mistakes, have the courage to, feel the fear and do it anyway. So those are some of the things that I've noticed.
I love it. I love it. And, there seems to be some friction with visibility, right? And also representation. So I'm just to take the example that you gave, there might be certain media outlets or, people who at the end of the day are part of a team producing material. Let's say in this case, it's marketing material, and they want to highlight, visibility, let's say, but they're doing it in a way that maybe has a backlash, right? Like you're looking at this and saying, oh, no, not again. And I can definitely see a million examples, happening there across intersectionalities. So what piece of advice would you give to these people who have the ability to produce images or to show to approach visibility and representation in a holistic way so that you don't feel any backlash when you do see that on the news, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is being able to contact them, right? Being able to call it out. I know it's not always easy to call these things out because sometimes we get scared, and I totally get it, right? We don't know what's going to happen. And of course, I get scared too, right? I have no clue what's going to happen, but if no one is out there doing it, no one else will, right? It really has to start with us, talking about the things that's wrong. I mean, about 3 weeks ago, I saw an article that was about the top Asian mail order brides to look for in 2022. In 2022, we're not, some object that you can order on a catalog, right? We are human beings. We have feelings. We have dreams and ambitions, and so, being able to call those out is really important, right? Like just that headline alone is really bringing Asian women down. That's not the type of representation we want to, see, right? And sometimes you don't know who's watching you, right? Sometimes maybe you put something out and you feel like it's a ghost town out there, but really people are watching you, right? They're rooting for you. So you never know who sees that and talks to the next person, right? Being able to say, hey, this isn't right. You shouldn't really be, talking about this. And yeah, maybe they might not answer back, right? But at least you're doing something. You're putting yourself out there regardless of what could happen, right? And so, yeah, for me, it's always just being able to call out the things that isn't right. That article, how media portrays us, even in Hollywood, right? I remember like a couple of years back, they were going to have a show about this comedian's life of her dad having an actual mail order bride, and that was just like horrendous, right? but people called it out. They said, this isn't right. This really will affect, Asian women and how they're being seen. And so sometimes it just starts with one person. And don't ever feel like, well, I'm one person, who's going to listen to me. People will listen. You just got to keep moving forward, keep pushing it, especially when you have a huge purpose to really empower and create a stronger representation for Asian women. You will go out there and do it. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. All of this takes work. But when we do it together, it can like make a move. It can move mountains.
Yes, and it's contagious, right? When you see someone standing up for themselves and for the people that they represent, it is very contagious, and it's also inspiring. So I love that message of even if you think that your voice isn't being heard, it does have an effect, and then we can start to advocate for each other in that realm as well. So let's make the link to, folks who are going through their career journeys and maybe getting some backlash, or maybe figuring out how they can position themselves and navigate these waters. So how do you think cultural narratives about Asian women impact their ability to forge their own unique career path?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, the negative stereotype really stops us, right? The fact that women in general aren't seen as, in leadership roles is already bad. But when you're considered a person of color, I mean, it makes it even worse. I mean, there was an article or a survey last year about, the representation of women of color in leadership roles. And, the numbers are super small, right? Like Black women was 4.4%, Hispanic women was 4.3%, and Asian women was 2.7%. And this is based on last year's numbers. So, I mean, the fact that we're in 2022 and people keep talking about diversity and inclusion, and this is what we see, it's disappointing, right? So when you see those numbers, you get mad, you get frustrated. And sometimes you just got to go out there and make that first move, right? Half of the things wouldn't have happened if I just went out there and made the first move. And even learning to ask questions, right? I always say if you don't ask, the answer is no. And I'll share an instance about me asking a question at my old job, right? So I was actually getting a salary review, right? And so I got a raise, and he was like, and my boss was like, "Well, now your salary is now 54,000." I was like, "Okay, thank you." And then I added, I asked this question. I'm like, "Is it okay if you make it 55,000? Because in Chinese culture, anything that ends in a number 4 is considered bad. When you say it out in Chinese, it means death. And so if you see, Chinese people's houses, they don't have the number 4 in it because it's a bad omen." And, of course, my boss laughed at me, right? Because he thought it was stupid and like ridiculous, but I was serious, right? In the end, he gave me that raise. So, I got $1,000 more just by simply asking that question. It's not the amount that really matters, it's the fact that he did it, right? And so you just never know what happens when you go out there and ask for that sale, ask for that negotiation, ask for that promotion. I mean, even if you get get rejected, at least you went out there and did it, instead of thinking, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? Instead of driving yourself crazy thinking, what if? And so those are some of the things I think would be a great thing. Yeah, I know it's easier said than done, but you really got to go out there and take action, right? Be able to overcome your fears, right? Especially when it comes to rejection. We all get rejected. I mean, I get rejected all the time. And yeah, in the beginning, it was depressing. I mean, I would eat my feelings a lot because I was like, is something wrong with me? Like, why am I getting rejected? But sometimes you got to go through 100 no's, 1,000 no's, even 10,000 no's to get a yes. And so, it's really about keep moving forward regardless of the situation that you're in, because whoever's watching this, you are a powerhouse. You are so capable of going out there and making things happen. It really just takes that belief in yourself to go out there and do it.
I love that. I love that. And yes, of course, it's easier said than done. But with practice, and with that, building that muscle, it gets better, right? And I love that you're also helping to demystify the big no. We've been talking a lot about this with the Chat and Learn program, where I'm moderating and interviewing lots of beautiful minds. And it's come up often, negotiating and how to, say what you need. And I love that your example of bringing your global context into play in this very intimate conversation about money and raise, and using that as an opportunity to just say it. And of course your boss could have said, no, I don't care. And then you would have figured out, okay, do I need to stay here? Do I need to go? If they don't care. But it's great that that was clearly a learning opportunity for the both of you, I would assume. And I just appreciate you sharing that with our live callers, because I feel like someone needed to hear that today. Let's talk about self-care. So as you said, it's not easy. And hearing no a lot of times, as you said in the beginning, it's hard. What can people do to start to be in a safe place when approaching these kinds of conversations for themselves? And then also, what can help get the weight off of our shoulders, you know, when we need to advocate, let's say, for Asian women that we are working alongside of, or, you know, that we see in our community? You know, can you speak to that realm as well?
Yeah, I mean, self-care is something we're not taught about, especially in school, right? I think kids need to learn about self-care from the minute they were born, because especially as women, you know, we're overworked, we're burnt out. We need to learn to take care of ourselves, even if it means setting aside 5 minutes of your day to just breathe and not do anything, right? It's not always making those big leaps that builds confidence. It's really taking those small, actionable daily steps that yield the big results. So also learning to find ways that work for you, right? Because what works for me might not work for you, right? I mean, one thing I realized was meditation was not for me. Like I would sit down and play a meditation tape, and then I'll be there going and then I'm falling asleep, right? And that would happen like 30 times straight, and I was like, I can't do this. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I realized it had nothing to do with me. It's just that way just didn't work for me. And so for me, one of the things I love doing is working out. Even though, I have to push myself to get up and do it, I still do it, right? If I can go run outside for an hour, that's my form of meditation. I can go out there and mind dump everything, be able to think whatever I think and just kind of let it go. And so, you have to find what works for you. Maybe running is a great way. Maybe not. Maybe meditation works for you. Maybe not, right? Even writing down your feelings, your journaling, that could be a great way. You have to do what works for you. And also learning to feel your feelings, right? Especially with Asian women, we've been told to always suppress our feelings. And that's why, we go through all these mental health issues, not feeling enough, feeling like we always have to do and be more. And especially the fact that we've been told you have to take care of everyone else except for yourself. I mean, that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of our energy out. So the number one rule, instead of honoring everybody else, we should honor ourselves first, right? Because when we can fill up our cup, we can, help people even more. So it really has to start with ourselves, and learning to feel your feelings, right? If you're having a crummy day, feel it out. It's okay, right? I'm not always 100% confident. There's days, to be honest, where I would just want to hide from the world and just watch K dramas all day. even the pandemic, like when it first started, the lockdowns, I really thought it was the end of the world, and I kind of just gave up on life. And I just felt it. If it took me a month to just kind of feeling depressed and not feeling good enough, I did, right? But I was glad that I had that support to help me, pick me back up and move forward. And I think that's one thing that we don't talk about a lot as well as asking for help, asking for support. That is very important, especially in our culture. We've always been told not to ask for help because it's deemed as shameful and as a weakness. But honestly, helping each other out can really build our confidence, really help us take care of ourselves and move forward and be the person that we're meant to be. So I want to tell people that asking for help is not shameful. It really helps you out even more. It fast tracks you to where you need to go. I don't have any problem asking for help. If I don't know something, I'll ask, right? If I have a bad day, I will talk to my friends or my peers about what I'm going through, because that also helps me. It helps them. We can learn from each other and find ways to, solve the problems that we go through.
I love that. I love the highlight on the importance of support groups, whether that be your family or community, your colleagues. Where is the fine boundary to draw when seeking support? Because sometimes we tend to maybe take on other people's opinions, and maybe it might not feel so comfortable. We might not feel so comfortable that sings to our authentic self.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're sharing tips on listen to yourself, take time. Essentially, reframe what productivity means in this Western world of like going, and never having time for yourself. So I love that you're highlighting, taking time to listen and see what works for you. But what is that fine line as far as looking for support? And, I think my mind is specifically tying back into your initial response with, media and how maybe, things it might seem easy to reach out to people on social media, but it's also one dimensional to a certain extent. So I would love to just hear, how can folks build their support systems, let's say digitally and physically?
Yeah, I mean, finding support is like you mentioned, right? Joining a women's group, having a coach, maybe having a mentor. One of the things I think is a great indication of setting boundaries is listening to your intuition. I know that's easier said than done. Believe me, I've ignored my intuition plenty of times, but if you're on social media and you feel like you're looking at something that triggers you, just shut it off, right? Your intuition's telling you, hey, you need to get off social media and just, tend to yourself, go out there and, focus on yourself, take care of yourself. And if you can't find a group or a mentor or coach, that's why, events like these, listening to podcasts, reading books is a great way for support, right? There's so much support out there. It's just finding the ones that work for you. Even YouTube, there's so many things you can watch to really help you build that support. So it really is starting with what works for you, what you feel is good, and just trusting your intuition a lot. I know sometimes you may picture something and then your intuition gives you like the total opposite and you're like, what are you doing to me, intuition? But when you get to that end goal, everything will make sense. So you just got to trust yourself, trust the process.
I love that. And you might have already answered this question that was submitted in the chat recently, but I would love to see if you can dive in deeper if you feel called to do so. So a little earlier, you were speaking about negotiating and, saying what you need without, putting the fear at least on the back seat so that you can say what you need. So Carol writes, what specific tips would you suggest for asking and ensuring that your ask has a high likelihood of being responded to positively at work?
Yeah. I think one of the things is maybe doing your research, having valid points as to why you want that sale or why this proposal is needed. I know as women, we love to prepare stuff, right? We're great at doing that. And sometimes we're just afraid to say it out loud. So when you can go out there and prepare, why you need a higher raise, why you're meant for that position, then you build, you have the confidence to go out there and tell them, listen, I can do this job because here's my proof, right? And I know sometimes we won't get it. That's fine, right? But at least we know that we are capable, right? We really got to learn to start believing in ourselves, start believing in our capabilities. And we can do that by, preparing ourselves, right? Like when you asked me to speak at the summit, you gave me a list of questions. I was like, okay, I prepared myself, figured out what to talk about, figured out some of the things that I'm going to share. And without that, I'd probably be like, right. And so I always prepare. I always want to make sure I give the best talk ever so that people can leave feeling really good and taking action out there. So I hope this can help you a little bit out with with the question, Carol.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Carol, for that question. So Catherine writes another question here live. What tips do you have to stop internalizing pressure and or stop doubting oneself?
So when it comes to self-doubt, I actually say three things to myself because I go through self-doubt, I get pressured. And so when I'm feeling moments of self-doubt, I say three things. I am loved, I am worthy, I am enough. Yes, when you say it for the first time, it's going to feel weird. So I'm just letting you know now because you're doing things that you're not used to doing, right? But when you keep telling yourself that, you're going to feel good. You're going to realize, you are more than enough to go out there and do it. Just three simple things, nothing too crazy, right? I know there's things out there, it's like 100 million like manifestations or sayings to yourself. And I'm like, no one has time to say that, but people have time to say three things. And if you don't have time, just record that, right? And just have it play while you're doing stuff, right? Whether it's doing chores, taking care of your kids, because even though you're doing something, your brain is still working. You need to put good things into it, right? It's kind of like a computer hardware, right? When you put a virus, what happens? All these pop-ups start coming up and your computer is going haywire. Your brain is the same thing. So that's why it's important to say great things about yourself, good things about yourself. And when it comes to feeling pressured, sometimes I just take a step back and, kind of internalize, why am I feeling this pressure? Am I feeling pressure because I need to get approval from someone? And if I do, I kind of just let it go. And this took me a while to figure it out, right? Before I would you know, go out there and make sure everyone is taken care of. I would feel like if I do something wrong, people are going to judge me. But I've learned to let go of it a lot more because of the internal work that I'm doing, because I ask the right questions to myself and kind of just really take a step back to kind of internalize it. So those are some of the things that I do.
I love it. And I love that you're speaking from your personal lived experience and that you're also highlighting, very transparently that it's not easy and it's going to sound weird and it, takes practice and, it takes building a habit and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work. And it's not a one size fits all kind of thing, especially when we're talking about our authenticity, because every single person is unique. So it's hard to go into this, this system that wants to be cookie cutters. And, a lot of folks today have been speaking about, the model person to show what it is to be successful. So it's like, but what does success mean? Let's go back there and throw that word out the window and redefine it so that we can make sure that it feels good to us. So I love that you're helping to break some of these taboos and also speaking from your personal existence, your personal lived experience here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about, we've got about 4 minutes left. So I would actually just love for you to tell us a little bit more about your book, Asian Women Who Boss Up. What was like the icing on the cake? It's like, I need to write this book, and whatever you'd like to share about the process and your hopes for this book as well.
Yeah, I mean, this book really happened out of the pandemic, when I actually met another lady online who started a book series. So this is actually part of a book series called Women Who Boss Up. And we have different themes. We have Asian women who boss up, women of color, Latinas, moms, health and wellness. I mean, we've already launched 7 books since we started this out of the pandemic. We have 3 more that we're launching. And we're working on our 11th book in this series, right? We have another Asian women book coming out this year called Asian Women Trailblazers Who Bossed Up. So really, we just realized, 75% of readers are women, but yet there's still so many books out there written by men. And so it's really important that we create media for women by women, right? Having representing the underrepresented, because it was so important. So, Asian Women Who Boss Up literally came out of a conversation saying, let's create a book highlighting Asian women. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Why not? We're all locked. We're on a lockdown. There's nothing else to do. And even if it took us a year to get this done, we will get it done. So, we started looking out for potential authors who'd be great for this book. It wasn't easy. Not everyone said yes to it. And, like I mentioned to you, I was eating my feelings, and so we were just so grateful that 16 women said yes to this book. I mean, look, when you see this cover and you see 16 powerful Asian women on the front cover, it's amazing, right? Because we don't have media that represent this. And this is, just as important as the stories inside. And some of the stories have been phenomenal. We have women who were diagnosed with breast cancer and sued by the FTC at the same time and was able to overcome it. We had another woman who migrated from Vietnam to the US in a boat, got stranded in the middle of the sea for 7 days, even got kidnapped by Asian pirates, which I never even knew was a thing. And that's only like a snippet of her story. But these stories are so powerful. People don't realize our stories matter, and we need to share it so we can show others what's possible. We didn't even realize when this book launched last year, the Stop Asian Hate movement was going to be going on. We just really had this passion to create a book highlighting Asian women. So to be honest, this book has been a blessing to me, being able to talk about it, to share about it, to even hear the women who've read it saying, this is the type of mindset they want their daughters to have. Or even saying, finally, a book about Asian women bossing up. We've been bossing up for years. Nobody talks about it. And that is so true. There are so many phenomenal Asian women who have, successful businesses, who own so much property, but nobody ever knows, they're like, the Asian women, the immigrant Asian women who you see at the supermarket, they're like the least expected person, but they are bosses. And so it was important to create this book and highlight these stories. And I'm just really excited that I was able to share this with everyone watching.
I love that. I love that it started with an invitation and now it's this full-blown series. And of course, seeing, all these women behind you, visibility is key. And just you being here today, speaking these, affirmations and digging deeper there as well. Got people in the chat are saying, I am love, I am worthy, I am enough, and they're thanking you. So thank you so much, Sheena. In these last, couple seconds that we have, how can folks connect with you and support the work that you're sharing with the world?
Yeah, for sure. So whoever's watching, you can check out my website, sheenayapchan.com. You can check out some of my past work. You can order a copy of the book. You can also check out my podcast, which is The Tao of Self-Confidence, where I interview Asian women about their journey to self-confidence. I've actually interviewed over 700 Asian women on this topic, so I have a lot of stories. You can go to the website, thetaoofselfconfidence.com, or you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. Also, if you forgot anything that I mentioned, you can always Google my name, Sheena Yap Chan, because I'm the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet.
Love that. Well, Sheena, it's been a pleasure to pick your mind, and congratulations on all the things. I'm looking forward to picking up your book and just supporting that movement. So I hope that our live listeners are as well. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, everybody. Bye.